The Senate hearing room was packed to the brim that morning. The buzz in the air was electric. As journalists shuffled their papers, cameras clicked endlessly, and aides hurried to secure the last details before the session began. Everyone knew that this was not going to be just another routine exchange of talking points. Senator Josh Hawley, known for his combative style, was set to go head-to-head with Representative Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democratic star who had developed a reputation for her sharp wit, quick comebacks, and an unshakable calm even under the fiercest attacks. This wasn't an ordinary hearing either. The committee had convened to discuss sweeping reforms related to election integrity and voting access, two issues that had become the very fault lines of American politics. While many expected long speeches, stacked statistics, and endless procedural talk, what no one anticipated was that one of the most replayed and viral political moments of the year would happen within the first 30 seconds of Jasmine Crockett opening her mouth. Josh Hawley sat back in his chair with his trademark smirk. He loved these high-profile confrontations, especially against Democrats whom he considered inexperienced or out of their depth. To him, Crockett was just another, freshman firebrand, someone who played to the cameras without the weight of real influence. He planned to knock her down a peg and remind her, and the nation, who truly set the tone in these halls. Representative Crockett, Hawley began, leaning into the microphone with a slow, deliberate cadence. Perhaps before you give us another one of your speeches, you can explain to this committee why your party insists on undermining the Constitution at every turn. A hush fell over the room. It was an opening jab, but a heavy one, framed to put her on the defensive, to paint her as unpatriotic, reckless, and incapable of addressing the real issues. Crockett, however, didn't flinch. She didn't even look ruffled. Instead, she calmly adjusted the microphone in front of her, smoothed the sleeve of her blazer, and locked eyes with Hawley. "Senator," she began, her voice steady but with a razor's edge, "the Constitution you're suddenly so concerned about is the same one you attempted to trample when you stood on this very floor and tried to overturn a free and fair election." Gasps erupted from the gallery. Reporters nearly dropped their pens, fingers scrambling across keyboards as they typed furiously. Cameras zoomed in tight on Hawley's face, which twitched ever so slightly, his smirk faltering. Crockett didn't stop. Her words flowed like a storm breaking open. "You sit here lecturing me about patriotism, yet we all remember you raising that fist to an angry mob outside these doors. 30 seconds into this exchange, Senator, and the real question isn't about my party, it's about your judgment, your loyalty, and your hypocrisy." The blow landed hard. The reaction was instant and deafening. Murmurs swept across the room, some stifled laughter even escaping from the corners where Democratic aides sat. Hawley's expression tightened, his smirk had completely vanished, replaced by a forced neutrality that betrayed his discomfort. His hand twitched toward his pen, spinning it nervously between his fingers. For Jasmine Crockett, this was nothing new. She had built her career on dismantling bad faith arguments with both precision and flair. What made this moment different was that it wasn't happening on a debate stage or a cable news panel. It was happening live, in one of the most powerful rooms in America, with millions watching via livestream. Within minutes, clips of the exchange started spreading on social media. On Twitter, hashtags like #CrockettClapback and #Priceless reaction trended. One user posted, "She shut him down in less than 30 seconds. I've waited years for this moment." Another wrote, "Josh Hawley's face when she said that. Worth framing." But inside the chamber, the tension only grew. Hawley leaned forward again, trying to recover. His voice was lower now, controlled, but the edge of irritation was unmistakable. "Representative Crockett, I would caution you against questioning the motives of your colleagues. This body deserves respect." "Respect?" Crockett shot back without missing a beat. "Respect is earned, Senator. And if we're talking about respect for this body, let's start by respecting the votes of the American people. Because without that, all of this," she gestured broadly to the grandeur of the chamber, "is nothing more than theater." Silence. This wasn't the exchange Hawley had prepared for. He wanted a sparring match that would make Crockett look unhinged or overly aggressive. Instead, she was calm, cutting, and devastatingly effective. He blinked, his lips parting as if to retort, but no words came immediately. And in politics, a pause that long is fatal. The chair banged the gavel lightly, reminding everyone to return to order. But the damage was already done. The viral moment had been cemented. Jasmine Crockett had dismantled Josh Hawley in 30 seconds flat, and his priceless reaction was burned into the internet forever. The hearing eventually trudged forward, but the energy in the room had shifted permanently. For the rest of the session, Hawley's questions seemed forced, even hollow, while Crockett's responses grew sharper, each line carrying the weight of someone who knew she had already won the moment. The balance of power in that room, if only for a day, belonged entirely to her. By the time the gavel came down to adjourn, the world outside had already exploded with reactions. News anchors interrupted scheduled programming to run the clip. Pundits replayed Hawley's stunned expression frame by frame, each network crafting its own narrative. CNN labeled it, Crockett's viral takedown. MSNBC called it, 30 seconds that rocked the Senate. Even Fox News, though defensive of Hawley, could not ignore the story. One commentator begrudgingly admitted, well, he walked right into that one. Back in her office, Crockett's staff was in a celebratory frenzy. Phones rang off the hook. Emails flooded in from supporters, activists, and even a few quiet admirers from across the aisle. One aide, beaming, read aloud a message from a high school civics teacher. My students watched that clip 3 times today. You showed them what real courage looks like. Crockett leaned back in her chair, exhaling. She wasn't one to gloat, but even she could feel the magnitude of what had just happened. We didn't just win an argument, she said softly, almost to herself. We reminded people that truth still has a voice. Meanwhile, across the Capitol, Hawley's team was scrambling. The senator had retreated to his private office, visibly irritated. He waved off questions from reporters and instructed his staff to control the narrative. Yet, no matter how hard they tried, the internet had already claimed the story. Memes flooded social media. One showed Crockett as a superhero delivering a knockout punch. Another overlaid Hawley's stunned expression with the caption, when you realize you're out of comebacks. The following morning, newspapers across the country plastered images of the exchange. The Washington Post ran the headline, Crockett's lightning strike. The New York Times described it as a masterclass in rhetorical precision. Even late-night comedians joined in. On The Daily Show, the clip played to roaring laughter, the host joking, that wasn't a debate, that was a public service announcement. But beneath the humor, there was something deeper brewing. Crockett's performance struck a chord with everyday Americans who had grown weary of endless gridlock and hollow talking points. She had spoken plainly, directly, without fear, and it resonated. In town halls across the country, citizens quoted her words. Activists held up posters with her lines emblazoned in bold text. Hawley, on the other hand, was left to navigate the fallout. His allies tried to downplay the moment, framing Crockett as performative. Yet, even within his own circles, whispers spread, had he underestimated her? Had his arrogance cost him more than just a day's news cycle? In the weeks that followed, invitations poured in for Crockett, from Sunday talk shows to grassroots rallies in states she had never even visited. At one appearance in Atlanta, the crowd erupted into chants of 30 seconds. Before she even reached the stage. Smiling, she leaned into the microphone and quipped, "Y'all, I promise my speeches are usually longer than that." The audience roared. The viral moment had elevated her from rising star to national figure almost overnight. Yet, Crockett remained grounded. She often reminded her staff, one viral clip doesn't change the world. But it can spark a conversation that does. Behind closed doors, Democratic leaders took notice. Strategists analyzed her delivery, her calm under fire, and her ability to connect. Some began whispering about future leadership roles, others even floating her name in conversations about statewide office. She had become more than just a sharp debater, she was a symbol of what many hoped the future of politics could look like: bold, unafraid, and unshakably rooted in principle. For Hawley, the priceless reaction clip became a shadow he couldn't shake. Every time he walked into a hearing, whispers followed. Reporters brought it up in interviews. Protesters held up cardboard cutouts of his stunned face outside his town halls. No matter how hard he tried to pivot, the internet refused to let the moment die. Months later, during another hearing, a witness stumbled over an answer, and Hawley attempted to seize the opportunity with a smug remark. Instantly, someone in the gallery muttered, "Don't let it be another 30 seconds." The room burst into laughter, and Hawley's face reddened. History has a way of boiling down complicated politics into singular, unforgettable moments, a raised eyebrow, a pointed phrase, a silence that speaks louder than words. For Jasmine Crockett, that 30-second exchange became the lightning bolt that lit her path forward. For Josh Hawley, it became the reminder that arrogance is often its own undoing. And for the American people, it became proof that sometimes, all it takes is half a minute of truth to cut through hours of noise.